So why do I play this game? Simple, really.
It's the Waifus.
Today's episode is sponsored by Massdrop. Massdrop is an awesome online platform that allows you to go on with a bunch of other users and determine what product you'd like to see featured next. And essentially what happens is that product gets mass ordered by Massdrop from the actual distributor of that product, and those of you that vowed to purchase that item end up getting it at a pretty nice discount. So you're getting the real high quality items for a discounted rate, which I think is really cool. So Massdrop ended up sending me this pair of Sennheiser PC37xs to kind of review and let you guys know my thoughts on. And right off the bat though, I do have to admit that headsets like this are not typically something that I would wear, and the reason being is because of this headband right here. Usually this provides too much pressure on my head and kind of gives me a bit of a pressure headache, strains my eyes a little bit more staring at the screen. So typically I just don't usually like wearing these. That's why you'll see me using these Apple EarPods a lot of the times. And they're okay, but obviously you get much better sound quality with bigger, better drivers like this amazing Sennheiser headset. And I do have to say that after giving these guys a chance and experiencing them, I actually don't have that problem with this headset. Like, in all seriousness, sponsorship aside, like, this headset is so incredibly light, it doesn't give me that problem. So this is actually a headset that I really would use as a daily driver, so I really think that's awesome. The ear cups are so soft and fuzzy, so I really like that as well. And just overall, it's Sennheiser, you know, they're a legendary name in the audio community, so absolutely incredible headset, and I've been really enjoying it so far. So if you'd be interested in snagging your own pair of the Sennheiser PC37xs or another product from Massdrop, be sure to check out the link in the video description below. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Lucky Crit. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different than the norm. It doesn't mean that Fire Emblem stuff is disappearing at all, please don't worry about that. But today is going to be a little bit of a side episode, as I've been kind of expanding my horizons a little bit as far as the games that I've been playing on my phone. And with this game, this is a game that kept popping up from time to time on the Fire Emblem Heroes subreddit. Not quite as often as games like Fate Grand Order, but this one I heard every once in a while, and I was kind of intrigued by it, so I started playing it. And I checked it out, and I have to say, it's become a daily or every other day type of a game that I've been playing lately, alongside Fire Emblem Heroes, which of course lends to a pretty awful time crunch as far as I'm concerned, but I've really enjoyed it, and that is Granblue Fantasy. So the reason why I actually like Granblue Fantasy is because it's a little bit of a mix, you know, aesthetically, visually, and gameplay-wise, sort of a mix between Bravely Default and Final Fantasy, and you'll notice that definitely from not only the art style, but also some of the mechanics within the game itself. And actually, an interesting fact that I did want to point out about this game, because you might kind of look at it and think to yourself, something looks familiar here, this seems similar, this does kind of look like Final Fantasy, and that is actually because this game is pretty notable for reuniting music composer Nobuo Uematsu and art director Hideo Minaba, who previously collaborated on Final Fantasy V, 6, 9, and Lost Odyssey. So these guys have been working together for a long time on a lot of amazing games, and you can definitely feel that energy and kind of even just see it aesthetically within Granblue Fantasy. And so that's probably something that I think originally drew me to the game. Another thing I do want to point out, the reason why I haven't really tried games like Fate Grand Order so much is probably the art style, to be honest with you. I'm not a huge fan of the kind of almost anime sort of drawings turned into sprites in the battle screen. And that's going to seem weird because this game does something similar, but they're a little bit more sort of chibi-ified sprites, a little bit more sprite-like, I would say. And for some reason, I like the aesthetic of this a lot better than Fate Grand Order. Fate Grand Order, I just couldn't... I don't know, there was something aesthetically that I just didn't really like about it, so I did actually end up playing that game once or twice, trying to test it out, but it didn't stick with me, and this one did. So, without further ado, let's boot up the game. I'm going to show you guys what I've got so far. I've been playing this game pretty consistently since about August of this year. I had it before that, actually, but the thing was, it was just something that I kind of wasn't really into at that point yet, didn't have the time for it yet, and just sort of had it on my phone. Something else that I wanted to point out before we get into it is that this game has actually been out for about 4 years now, so it does have 4 years under its belt. It was released in, I believe, March of 2014, but of course that was Japanese only, and we actually have just gotten the localization, I think, within the past probably 2 years or so. So even though you can completely play the game in English, everything is fine, there are going to be some little quirks about it, and I'll point those out as we kind of go along. The first major thing that I will say is that this is not a game that you can just go onto the Google Play or iOS app stores and download, unfortunately. I'm still really not sure why that is, because they do have an official English localization for the game, but it's not available there. And I'm having difficulty remembering exactly how I acquired it. I believe it was on my old phone that I got it, and it actually transferred to this phone when I upgraded to this phone and got all my stuff brought over. But I do believe that most people use an app called Ku app, and that is unfortunately only available for Android devices. I'm not sure on iOS, you might just have to end up playing it through the web browser, which you can actually do through Chrome or Safari. You can also play the game that way, which is interesting. And I have actually heard some pretty good things about that, even compared to the app. You know, obviously you can't have any crashes and stuff if you're playing it that way. And I have actually heard in some cases that that might be faster to play it that way. But for me personally, I've been playing the app and I'm fine with the app, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, you may have to download an app called Ku app and download it from there. And what that app basically allows you to do is allows you to access the Google Play Store without any sort of region locks on it, so you can download Japanese-only games and that type of stuff. And I will be linking some helpful links in the description below if you do want to start playing the game and you do need some help starting out and kind of figuring out what you need to do. Because even when you do get the game through the Ku app and download it like that, it will still be in Japanese at first, and you will have to press a couple of buttons in the app upon startup to be able to change it to English. It isn't too bad, but like I said, a little bit more intense, I would say, than your typical just downloading it from the store type of a game. But without further ado, let's take a look. So this is the home screen that we're greeted with. Just kind of has the news here, but I'm going to skip and go right to the main thing. You'll notice the little loading screen does actually change from time to time based upon what event is happening. So we have this collaboration event with something called Pretty Cure, which I'm not familiar with, but must be some sort of Japanese series or something like that. So there's not usually those kind of weird, almost like baby-like creatures jumping around. That's not typical, so that's not the reason why I like this game. So right off the bat here, you can see that we have Party, Upgrade, Draw, and Quest, and of course these are our menus, and they can be switched. And actually a cool little aesthetic thing that I like here is you can kind of switch the featured character between everybody in your current party, which I think is really, really cool. And I think it's the folks that you used recently too, so that's pretty nice. Just a nice little aesthetic change. Honestly, in Heroes, I do wish that we got some new castle backdrops because at this point they're pretty boring. But I just kind of like how you can do this. And you'll notice that the background itself actually changes depending upon which island you visit and where you go. So that's pretty cool as well. As far as the story goes, just to get into that really quickly here, I do think that overall, I am appreciating the story a little bit more than the Fire Emblem Heroes story. And you'll notice that, you know, a lot of the time in this episode, I'm going to be comparing this game to Fire Emblem Heroes, mostly because this channel is Fire Emblem centric. And, you know, Fire Emblem Heroes is just a game that I'm completely invested in, and I know it very well, like the back of my hand. So when it comes to differences or things that either is missing between the two, I just figured it might be interesting to point out, especially because most of you guys out there in my audience probably play Heroes. Some of you might not like it, but in that case, at least you'll know sort of what's similar and what's different compared to this game in Fire Emblem Heroes. So the way that the story actually works is kind of interesting. Heroes, I've been kind of disappointed because even though we finally are getting into sort of some actual plot twists and some stuff happening within the story, I think Book 2 did wonders as far as, you know, some of the things that Book 1 was missing. But it could still use a bit more, and it's still kind of a little bit, in a sense, lowest common denominator. And I don't want to hype up Granblue Fantasy's story and say that this is the best thing ever either. But I do think that so far, I haven't been able to see some twists coming, and there has been some interesting stuff that's happened. And I think I just overall like the general feel of it as far as kind of the way that the events and stuff work and fit in together. It's almost like a sort of long-running anime where you can have like side episodes every now and again, and I kind of like the aesthetic of that. And it even also works in a little bit as far as the overall arching story into when you get new characters. Because when you actually get new characters, you get these things called Fate episodes, which are basically an introductory episode to that character. So it kind of gives you a little bit more of a backstory to that character and lets you know who they're about and sort of how they fit with the crew. You get to know their personality a little bit. And that's something that I think that Fire Emblem Heroes could really benefit from, because it's not something that you really have happen at all. I mean, obviously you can go visit the character page, you know, click on the character a couple times, hear their dialogue, that sort of thing, you know, and talk to them in the castle with a couple different lines of dialogue and stuff like that. But as far as like actually knowing the character, where they're from, you know, what Fire Emblem game they're from, that's not something that you can really garner that easily from Heroes. And so I think that Heroes honestly could use a system like this, because I think this is really cool. Like, I don't know who half of these characters are, but the ones whose Fate episodes that I have seen has sort of imparted me with kind of an imprint of how these characters function, who they are, their personalities, and I really, really do like that and appreciate that. And there's definitely some characters that I've grown to really like just based off of playing a couple of these episodes. So I think that's really cool. I like that a lot. And they also keep things kind of vague as far as like the when and the where. So no matter what point you are in the actual game story, or whether you've been doing a lot of side content, it doesn't matter. It doesn't feel jarring to jump into some of these Fate episodes because it's just like another day aboard, you know, this ship in this game is called the Grand Cipher. So you're just traveling somewhere else and you just happened upon, you know, a different island or who knows what. And so it just kind of all meshes together really well, I feel, as far as like an overarching narrative and how things, you know, even things as such as random gacha pulls can fit into your story playing the game and your experience. So I think that that's really amazing. I like that a lot. So as I just said, this game is in fact a gacha game. So if you're not too thrilled about those, then, you know, maybe you're not too interested in this. But what I do want to point out is that this game is actually pretty friendly to F2P players. And what I will say with that is over this summer, when I first started in August, they actually had a 10-day period where you were able to do a free 10 draw every single day. And I do believe they actually ended up extending that for about either 2 weeks or 20 days or something like that. So I was able to get, you know, just starting off in the game, a lot of good SSR characters, which is, you know, the general gacha term for basically a 5-star. I was able to get a lot of those characters pretty quickly and without spending any money. So I think that that's really awesome. Obviously, it's not something that they do all the time in this game, but every now and again, they are pretty generous with stuff like that. So I do think that that's really, really cool. They also do have something called a start ticket or a start dash. There's a whole bunch of different names for it, but basically what happens is when you first start playing the game, if you're willing to spend a little bit of money, approximately $25, you can actually look through an entire pool of characters that are available to you and just pick whatever character you want, one of those characters. So if you want to start off with somebody guaranteed, or if there's a specific character that you want that you just would really like to play the game with or try to get into the game with, I think that that's a really great way to do it. And I think that's pretty cool. And every now and again, there's actually one going on right now, but I already did it. They have something called sub-ticks or surprise tickets. And that's basically a rehash of that same thing, where every now and again, if you're willing to spend that amount, you can pick a character that you want that is available in the normal general pool who you don't have. So that's really cool. If you failed to pull somebody, if there's somebody that you really want, typically all you have to do is wait a couple months, and obviously you can continue pulling for that character. Or if you really just want to get them and nab them, then it's going to be about $25, but you can just get them, pretty much guaranteed. Of course, that does depend upon the character and the availability and all that, but generally, you can pretty much get who you want, which I think is really, really cool. Another thing about the story that I will point out as a negative of it, though, is that each story chapter functions as basically 4 little side missions put together, and that's okay, but it does end up being a little bit click intensive because you're kind of going in, playing one little mini sort of sub-chapter. You know, usually it encompasses some dialogue, then there's a little sort of exploration scene where you kind of get items and stuff, then typically a battle, and then afterwards potentially some more dialogue, and that's the wrap up. And then you kind of get your quest sort of results and rewards and experience and stuff, and you're kind of kicked out, and then you can rejoin and continue the story. And it just eventually, after time goes on, it becomes super tedious, and so that's something that I don't really appreciate. I kind of wish it flowed together a little bit better, perhaps less clicking or less stuff like that. And it does seem a little too formulaic at times, because after a while it's just kind of like, you know exactly what you're getting into. You play the story mission, dialogue, exploration, here's a little fight. That's usually pretty simple. I'm about 40 chapters in, so I know that it's going to get harder, but for me right now, even still, it's quite easy. It's laughably easy still. And then just repeat, rinse and repeat. And it gets a little grating after a while, and you kind of just don't want to play the story anymore. But overall, as far as like the plot is fine. I've been enjoying it, and I think that in some ways it is better than Heroes, because Heroes can tend to kind of just be overly simple or just reveal everything to you a little too fast. So I have been appreciating that. I just wanted to point that out about the story chapter segmentation. There's also raids that you can do, and one of the interesting things is that even as a new player, they do make a lot of this event content pretty available to you. So like I said, this event is going on right now. I'm not a huge fan of this event because I don't really know this series, and it seems like it's geared towards, I guess, younger fans a little bit. But you'll notice we have different chapters here, like chapter 1, 2, and 3. Typically, these events will have about, you know, anywhere from 3 to like 6 or 7 chapters. And each one, like I said, has these sort of 4 sub-chapters you can see with the little dots over here on the side. And you can play through them pretty quickly. And then generally you'll have daily missions after a certain point and even raids that you can do with other players to fight some of the bosses from that side quest, get items, and then purchase items from these sort of little stores. So let me look at treasure here for a second. So you can see I can buy this summon here of these 2 characters, or some items here, or even a premium 10-part draw ticket, a normal draw ticket, and then some rings and all sorts of stuff. So you can kind of use your points that you gain from the event from doing the missions and the raids to buy whatever you want from these events. And that's sort of how most events that I've noticed in this game function, which is fine. Like I said, sometimes you can get a little tired of doing the story missions, especially if there's a new event every once in a while. You know that you're going to get anywhere from those 3 to 6 chapters with the 4 each. And, after a while you get a little tired of doing it, but I have been appreciating it. And there are some really cool collaboration events that I have appreciated, like a Tales series crossover. There's an Attack on Titan crossover that is unfortunately not available as a re-release yet, but hopefully someday soon, because I'd like to play that. And I didn't get the chance to play it the first time around. But you can also access some of these old events in the side story menu, which I think is pretty cool. So now the age-old question. Are there waifus? Yes. Yes, there are. So I mentioned summoning, or drawing, as it's called in this game, a little bit, but let's get into that with a little bit more depth. As far as the actual draw rates in comparison to Fire Emblem Heroes, they are pretty similar, I will say. I think it is a 3% chance at base, and they do also do 6% banners basically every single month. So you can definitely wait for that and do the sort of double percent chance, kind of like legendary banners in Fire Emblem Heroes. So I do appreciate that. There's also a really, really cool system here, as you can see, with these cerulean sparks. And basically what that is every single time that you do a 10-pull summon, you will actually get 10 cerulean sparks. If you do that 30 times, you will actually be able to just straight up get any character that's part of that banner and featured in that banner. So what that is basically almost sort of Granblue Fantasy's version of the pity rate in Fire Emblem Heroes, but with an actual guarantee of the actual character that you want, who's featured within that banner. So that's pretty cool. I enjoy that a lot. What I don't like, though, is it's kind of hefty to get to. You need 300, as I said, and that's kind of a lot of summons to go through. You can do a single part summon. As you can see right here, there's actually a 1 free daily, which I will do. I'll show you in a little bit. But aside from that, a 10-pull summon is either going to cost you 3,000 crystals, which is sort of the F2P way of going about it, or 3,000 Granblue coins, which is actually going to turn out to be about $25. The interesting thing about that is if I actually click in here and go through with this, unlike Heroes, which will just jump into the Google Play App Store and ask you if you want to spend that money, if you have your credit card hooked up to it, you'll see in here, this is all Japanese because it's going through, I believe, Mobage is their sort of MOBA sort of account system or whatever. As you can see, there's 3,000 GC up here. I only have about 400 GC, so I'd have to press this top button, and then you're taken to this extra page here, and you can see the amounts, so it's not that confusing, but I'd have to pick 3,000 right there and go through with that. And then generally, once that's done, back out. Don't close the game, but click back, and then go back in, and then the updated balance will show in there, just in case if you're curious about how that works. But yeah, so getting to 300 sparks is not going to be easy. The way that a lot of players that I have seen play this game is they will accumulate crystals, draw tickets, all that kind of stuff until they have enough, and wait till a particular draw or banner to come around, and then they will sort of unload all of their stuff on that banner, and then basically guarantee that they get the character that they want at the end. Everything else is just sort of a bonus, kind of, because, then you get your actual summons, and you see who you get with that. But then at the end of the day, you know that you're guaranteeing that you get that certain character, because then you can spark at the very end. So some good and some bad there. As far as with the conversion rate between this game and Heroes, with which one is more expensive, I do want to say that they're kind of similar in the sense that, with Fire Emblem Heroes, you go in and you have 5 stones to pick from, which costs you 20 orbs, which is approximately anywhere from sort of 10 to 15 bucks, which is not the best, honestly. It's quite bad. The good thing about Heroes, though, is you can kind of get away with perhaps spending about $20 a banner if you wanted to, and that won't guarantee you great odds, but some decent odds, I would say, as far as getting stuff. And it's not too expensive as far as gacha games go. Heroes is pretty generous, to be honest. And this game is as well. But the thing about this game is, for a full summon, which in this case is actually a 10-part summon, that's going to set you back about 25. So it's more than Heroes, but the benefit of Heroes, I'd say, is Heroes, at least you can snipe certain colors if you're looking to get certain characters. That's what I do when I summon, if I'm only going in for someone in particular. And the good thing about that is you can go in, spend your 5, If you're not feeling it, or if there's only one orb of that color or none at all, you spend your 5 and you get out, and then you can kind of get back in and have another chance at getting what you want. With this, obviously, it's just that one go, that 1 10 pull, and you see what you got, and if you didn't get anything, then that's that. But it's sort of comparable in that sense, so I find that kind of interesting. There's also a free daily rupee draw that you can do. Alongside, you can actually just spend rupees to draw 2, but I don't think that it's quite that great as far as the rates with that, so not the best, obviously. But like I said, you can definitely play it F2P, save up your stuff, get the exact character that you want, so I think that that's pretty great, honestly. Hey guys, this video went on a little bit longer than I expected. It was coming in at a whopping 43 minutes, so I wanted to split it into 2 parts. You've just watched part 1. Part 2 will be available in a couple days, and once it is, you can click here. Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear if you're interested in checking out this game. Be sure to check out the links in the video description and all that good stuff. But thank you so much for watching this episode, and I'll catch you in the next one.